I work as a lingerie maid. Today, I showed up at a new client's house, and it was my college professor. I work for a cleaning service that offers nude or lingerie-clad maid service. There is no touching, and if boundaries get crossed, then the client is struck from the client list. The client can ask for a type, e.g. hair color, race, weight, age, gender, but they cannot pick a specific maid. Their maid is assigned by the company. Both client and maid have the option of using a fake name, and pictures of either party are not provided. Any institutions the clients and maids are linked to, each school or work, are also noted, so something exactly like this doesn't happen. All of this is done for confidentiality. Clients can request after the first session that the same maid comes back, but that's it. I'm explaining this to show that it is impossible for him to have requested me or known it was me beforehand. I got a message from the company saying a nearby and anonymous client had requested a lingerie-clad maid, and I was his type. I went, in jeans and a t-shirt with the lingerie underneath so he didn't see anything, knocked on the door, and my lecturer opened it. I realized what had happened and said that the agency typically filters these things out. Clearly, there was an error, and I can stay and be professional, or I can get him another maid. But whichever he chooses, we should both just forget this. He asked for another maid, so I called the office, explained, and left. The office says due to computer/human error, no one clocked that we are linked with the same school. I had to go into school a few days ago, along with some classmates, and we ran into him. He was awkward, uncomfortable, wouldn't look me in the eye, and refused to even directly address me. We ran into him again later that day, and it was the same, if not worse that time. We also had some classes at the end of last academic year, after the mix-up, where I ended up at his place, and I was similarly ignored, though I attributed this at the time to the online format of the classes. This would just be one of those things, except I have classes with him all next year, as well as private meetings with him to discuss my studies. These have to be done with him, are compulsory, and can affect my grade. While I know that I can act professionally, I am concerned that he cannot, as it has been several months, and he is still not past it. I am putting a lot of time and money into this, and if this is indicative of how he will act for the remainder of it, I feel I will not get what I paid for, and that my grade will suffer. I do not know how best to progress. I cannot afford to let my grade come to harm, but talking to him might make things even worse. Any advice? Update 1. He reported me. I booked a meeting with him during office hours so I could clear the air, as was suggested on my last post, and then followed it up with an email that simply said that as school is starting up again, and its final year, I'd like a chance to meet with him to talk about my dissertation and make sure he approved of the topic before I launched into it. Something that is completely standard and everyone else is doing, but was somehow enough to panic him. The maid service I work for also offers completely clothed maids. So from what I can gather, he's gone to the uni saying he paid for a fully clothed maid and only went through this service because of their extensive vetting. But when I showed up, I offered to do it naked in exchange for extra help on my dissertation. He said no. Obviously, this is bullcrap, and I got the recording of the phone call I had with work and gave it to the uni, which was enough to stop the investigation. But I couldn't get his payment records to prove he paid for lingerie due to the anonymous payment system, and any more than that would require a legal case, which I can't afford. And even if I did manage to stay here, I would still have to be in his classes, as they are mandatory. But at the same time, my uni have basically said that they can't put me in his classes after this, because I have essentially been accused of sexually harassing him. He must have reported me the second I sent in my meeting request, because I got the email from the person dealing with this, literally, less than a week later. I have no clue what the fudge he's thinking. I'm assuming he thought I would report him and decided to get ahead of it, but even that makes no sense, as all I did was request a meeting. Whatever his logic, I am dropping out. I am 1 year off completing my degree, so I've submitted some inquiries about transferring to nearby universities. But because this has happened right at the start of a new school year, it's going to be 10x harder than it would be if this happened over summer or last year. The only upsides are that I've not actually been expelled or suspended, so I won't need to explain this to anyone. The uni seem fine to just let me go quietly, and another lecturer is writing me a reference. The agency have also said they will blacklist him, and they share this info with other services, so hopefully he won't be able to do this to anyone else. Just Jesus Christ. Adding that, I have had a free consultation with a lawyer, and I will not be pursuing legal action. The best case scenario, where I win, my name is cleared, and I can stay in this uni. My profession will still be outed, I will be shunned by classmates and staff members alike, and my lecturer will continue to be a dick, and I'll be staying at a uni that have confirmed they will throw me under a bus to save a weaselly prick. Even the best case scenario will also earn me a black mark next to my name in academic circles. Update 2. After my last update, I thought I'd be done with this mess. I was all set to transfer to a nearby university, had my reference sorted, and was basically planning to leave all this behind. First off, remember that free consultation I had with a lawyer? Well, he turned out to be more helpful than I initially thought. After hearing my whole story, he suggested that while legal action might not be the best route, I should consider mediation. He said sometimes universities are more willing to settle things quietly if it avoids bad press. I was skeptical, but decided to give it a shot because, honestly, what did I have to lose at this point? So, I sent a formal request for mediation to the university, outlining my situation and expressing my concerns about how this whole debacle could affect my future. To my surprise, they agreed. I guess the thought of potential bad press, especially if the story got picked up by the media, was enough to make them want to resolve this as quietly as possible. The mediation meeting was set up for the following week. I walked into that room, ready to defend myself to the hilt. But guess who was there? Not just my lecturer, but also the head of the department and a representative from HR. It was like walking into a den of lions. The tension was thick, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. The mediator, a calm, middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense attitude, started by asking each of us to present our sides. My lecturer went first, reiterating his bullshit story about how I supposedly offered to clean naked for extra help on my dissertation. I could see the discomfort in his eyes, though. He knew he was lying, and it was clearly eating at him. When it was my turn, I laid out everything. I explained how the service works, the misunderstanding that led to me showing up at his door, and how I had acted professionally the entire time. I even played the recording of my call to the agency, which clearly showed I had no intention of crossing any lines. After what felt like an eternity, the mediator called for a break. We were sent out of the room while she deliberated with the university reps. I was pacing the hallway, nerves shot, when the door finally opened and we were called back in. The mediator had a decision. She said that while there was no concrete evidence to fully back either side, the recording I provided was a strong point in my favor. The university agreed to drop all accusations against me, and my lecturer was formally warned about making unsubstantiated claims. They also offered to help facilitate my transfer to another university and ensure that my record remained clean. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was enough to give me a sense of closure. I started the transfer process and got confirmation that I could start at the new university in the next semester. Things were finally looking up, or so I thought. Here's where it gets wild. A few days after the mediation, I received an anonymous email. It was from another student at my university who had experienced something similar with the same lecturer. She had seen my Reddit post and decided to reach out. Her story was eerily similar. She'd also worked for a service, though hers was an escort agency, and he'd booked her by accident. He had also tried to manipulate the situation to get her in trouble when she refused his advances. We decided to meet up, and I was blown away by her courage. She had been through so much, but was determined not to let this guy get away with it again. We discussed our options and decided that while legal action might not be feasible, we could still make sure he faced some consequences. With her permission, I compiled both of our stories and sent them to the university's HR department, along with a request for a thorough investigation into his conduct. I also hinted that if they didn't take it seriously, we would consider going to the media. The university responded quickly, setting up an independent investigation. They promised confidentiality and assured us they would handle it with the utmost seriousness. While I haven't heard the outcome yet, I feel a sense of relief knowing that this is finally being addressed. In the meantime, I'm settling into my new university and focusing on my studies. It's been a rough ride, but I'm determined to move forward and not let this derail my future. I've met some great people here who are supportive and understanding, which has made the transition smoother. And as for my former lecturer, I'm keeping an eye on the situation. If he tries to pull this crap again, he'll have to deal with more than just a couple of angry students. We're ready to expose him if necessary. Update 3. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. I wish I could say things have calmed down, but life seems determined to keep me on my toes. After settling into my new university, I was finally starting to feel like I could move on. Classes were going well, and I was making friends. For a while, it seemed like the nightmare was behind me. But then, out of nowhere, I got a call from the independent investigator assigned to my former lecturer's case. They had found substantial evidence against him. Not only did they corroborate my story and that of the other student who reached out to me, but they also discovered that several other students had similar complaints. Most had been too scared to come forward, but the investigators' efforts had given them the courage to share their experiences. It turns out this guy had a long history of inappropriate behavior that had somehow been swept under the rug. The university took swift action. They terminated his employment and issued a public statement acknowledging the investigation and their findings. It was a huge relief to see justice served, but it also opened up a floodgate of emotions. I felt vindicated, but also angry that it had taken so long for something to be done. But wait, there's more. The story didn't end there. A few days after the public statement, I received another anonymous email. This time, it was from a journalist who had gotten wind of the story. They were interested in doing a piece on the whole situation, including the failures of the university's system that allowed this to go on for so long. They wanted to interview me. I was hesitant at first. The last thing I wanted was more attention on this mess. But after talking it over with my friends and family, I decided to go for it. If my story could help prevent something like this from happening to others, then it was worth it. The journalist promised to keep my identity confidential and handle the story with sensitivity. The interview was intense. I recounted everything from the initial encounter with my lecturer to the mediation and the eventual investigation. It was emotionally draining, but also cathartic. The journalist was empathetic and asked thoughtful questions. They also interviewed the other student who had reached out to me and a few of the other victims who felt comfortable sharing their stories. The article was published a few weeks later. It was a powerful piece that shed light on the broader issue of abuse of power in academic institutions. The response was overwhelming. It sparked a wave of support from students, alumni, and even faculty members from various universities. Many shared their own stories of similar experiences, and it became clear that this was a widespread issue that needed more attention. In the midst of all this, I was contacted by an advocacy group focused on supporting victims of abuse in educational settings. They offered legal advice, emotional support, and a platform to amplify our voices. With their help, we started a petition demanding stricter policies and better oversight to protect students. The petition quickly gained traction, garnering thousands of signatures. As for me, I'm still adjusting to my new normal. The advocacy group has been a great source of support, and I'm now more involved in their efforts to drive change. I've also been focusing on my studies, determined not to let this whole ordeal derail my education. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Just when I thought things were finally settling down, I got a message from my old agency. They had found new information related to my case and wanted to discuss it with me. I was intrigued and a bit nervous. What more could there be? When I called them back, they informed me that another employee had come forward with evidence that my former lecturer had tried to book her under a different name after being blacklisted. Apparently, he was trying to find ways around the system to continue his predatory behavior. The agency had flagged his account and reported it to the authorities. They also shared this information with the university, adding another layer of accountability. The authorities opened an investigation into his actions, and while I don't have all the details yet, it's clear that he's in serious trouble. This guy thought he could continue his behavior without consequences, but it looks like he's finally going to face the music. Update 4. Hey everyone, it's me again. After the article was published, my life gained a semblance of normalcy. I was knee-deep in my studies, my social life at my new university was blossoming, and the advocacy work was both fulfilling and empowering. I felt like I was finally moving on from the whole mess. But then, out of nowhere, I received a package in the mail. The package was unmarked and had no return address, which immediately made me suspicious. Inside was a single USB drive. I debated whether or not to plug it into my computer, fearing it could be something malicious. But curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to use an old laptop I didn't mind risking. What I found on the USB drive was a goldmine. It contained a series of emails and text messages between my former lecturer and another staff member at my old university. The correspondence revealed a coordinated effort to cover up multiple incidents of misconduct by my lecturer. There were discussions about discrediting victims, manipulating records, and even paying off a student to keep quiet. My stomach churned as I read through the messages, realizing the depth of corruption and deceit. I contacted the journalist who had written the initial article and shared the contents of the USB drive with them. They were stunned and immediately saw the potential for a follow-up piece that could expose the university's systemic failure to protect its students. The journalist reached out to some of the other victims, and they agreed to be interviewed again, this time with their identities protected. The second article hit like a bombshell. It was a detailed expose that not only highlighted my lecturer's predatory behavior, but also the university's attempts to shield him from consequences. The response was even more explosive than the first article. There were protests on campus, students demanding accountability, and calls for a complete overhaul of the university's administration. The story went viral, and soon national news outlets picked it up. Amid the chaos, I received another email from the advocacy group. They wanted to hold a press conference with some of the victims to discuss the findings and push for immediate reforms. I was hesitant at first, but they assured me it would be safe and that our identities would be protected. We all agreed to participate, knowing the importance of putting a human face to the issue. The press conference was nerve-wracking, but also empowering. We shared our stories, emphasized the need for systemic change, and called out the university for its failures. The media coverage was extensive, and the public outcry grew louder. There were calls for the resignation of top university officials, and soon enough, heads began to roll. The university president stepped down, along with several high-ranking administrators. They announced the formation of an independent review board to overhaul their policies and procedures regarding misconduct allegations. In the midst of all this, I got another unexpected development. I received a call from a legal firm representing several former students who had experienced similar issues at other institutions. They were putting together a class action lawsuit against universities that had failed to protect their students from predatory staff members. They asked if I would be interested in joining as a key witness. After discussing it with my lawyer and the advocacy group, I decided to join the lawsuit. It was a big step, and I knew it would be another long and exhausting process, but the potential to make a real impact was too important to pass up. The lawsuit aimed to not only seek justice for the victims, but also to push for nationwide reforms in how universities handle misconduct cases. The lawsuit is still in its early stages, but the initial response has been promising. More and more victims are coming forward, and there's a growing movement demanding better protections for students. It's heartening to see, but also a stark reminder of how widespread this issue is. As for my personal life, things have been a mix of highs and lows. My studies are going well, and I'm on track to graduate on time. The support from my new university has been incredible, and my professors and classmates have been understanding and encouraging. The advocacy work continues to be a big part of my life, and I've found a new sense of purpose in helping others navigate their own struggles. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. The stress of the ongoing legal battles and media attention has taken a toll on my mental health. I've been seeing a therapist regularly, which has helped, but there are days when it all feels overwhelming. The support from friends and family has been invaluable, and I've learned the importance of leaning on others when things get tough. And then there's the personal fallout from being in the spotlight. While most of the response has been positive, there have been a few negative encounters. Some people still believe the lies my former lecturer spread, and I've received a handful of nasty messages online. It's a reminder that not everyone will be supportive, and that some people are quick to judge without knowing the full story. One bright spot in all this has been reconnecting with the other victims. We've formed a tight-knit support group, and having people who truly understand what I'm going through has made a huge difference. We lean on each other, share advice, and find strength in our shared experiences. So that's where things stand now. The fight is far from over, but we're making progress. The lawsuit is moving forward, the university is implementing real changes, and the advocacy work is gaining momentum. I'm cautiously hopeful about the future and ready to keep pushing for justice and accountability. Update 5. Hey everyone, it's been a long and winding journey, and I'm here with what I hope will be the final update. Since my last update, the class action lawsuit has gained significant traction. More victims came forward from universities across the country, and it quickly became clear that this was a systemic issue. The legal team working on the case has been incredible, and the media attention has helped keep the pressure on universities to make meaningful changes. One of the major breakthroughs came when a whistleblower from my old university contacted the legal team. This person provided documents showing that my former lecturer's misconduct had been reported multiple times over the years, but was repeatedly covered up by the administration. These documents were a smoking gun, proving that the university had knowingly allowed his behavior to continue unchecked. With this new evidence, the lawsuit reached a settlement phase much quicker than anticipated. The universities involved in the lawsuit agreed to a substantial settlement that included not only financial compensation for the victims, but also a commitment to implement comprehensive reforms. These reforms include mandatory training for staff and students, the establishment of independent review boards for misconduct cases, and stronger protections for whistleblowers. As part of the settlement, my former university also agreed to offer me a full scholarship if I chose to return and complete my degree there. They issued a public apology for the way they handled the situation and assured me that steps were being taken to prevent such failures in the future. After careful consideration, I decided to take them up on their offer. It was a tough decision, but I felt that returning and finishing what I started would be a powerful statement. Plus, the new policies and oversight made me feel safer about going back. Returning to my old university was surreal. There were a lot of mixed emotions, but I was greeted with overwhelming support from many students and faculty members. My first day back, I received a standing ovation from one of my classes, which nearly brought me to tears. It was a reminder of how far I had come and how important it was to keep fighting for what's right. During my final semester, I continued my advocacy work and helped the university's new task force develop and implement their reforms. It was fulfilling to see real change taking place and to know that my efforts had made a tangible difference. I even gave a guest lecture on the importance of speaking out and standing up against misconduct, which was incredibly well received. Graduation day was a mix of emotions. Walking across that stage, knowing everything I had been through, felt like the ultimate victory. I had faced adversity, stood up for myself and others, and came out stronger on the other side. My family, friends, and new university friends were all there to support me, and it was a moment I'll never forget. As for my former lecturer, he's facing legal consequences beyond just losing his job. The investigation revealed enough evidence for criminal charges to be brought against him. He's currently awaiting trial, and it looks like he'll finally be held accountable for his actions. It's a small comfort knowing that justice is being served. After graduation, I was offered a position with the advocacy group that supported me throughout this ordeal. I gladly accepted and am now working full-time to help other students who find themselves in similar situations. It's incredibly rewarding work, and I'm passionate about making a difference. We're currently working on launching a national campaign to raise awareness and push for further legislative changes to protect students at all educational institutions. On a personal note, I've been focusing on my mental health and well-being. Therapy has been a game changer, and I've learned to take time for self-care amidst the chaos. I've reconnected with old friends and made new ones who have become a crucial part of my support system. Life is starting to feel normal again, and I'm excited about the future. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who followed my story, offered advice, and provided support. Your encouragement and solidarity have meant the world to me and played a crucial role in helping me navigate this journey. If there's one thing I've learned, it's the power of community and the importance of standing together against injustice.